Okay, so you've seen how to set a color for the game scene. You've learned about sort of code errors that might occur. Let's now do things that are a bit more interesting. Let's see how to add text on the game scene and how to add images. But before that, we need to have a better understanding of all the code that is within this file. So let's just briefly have a look at that. The first thing you may notice is that there are three things that look similar. There's a function preload, one called create, and one called update. Those are what we call function blocks. It's just a way to structure and organize the code. And you will see that behind the scene, we're using a sort of toolbox, a sort of framework called Phaser. And these expect those three function blocks. The first one is called preload. And inside preload, we'll set up things like loading an image or loading a sound file. So that will be executed the first time the program is run. It's just a way to load up resources. The second function block is create. Once we've loaded up all the resources, this is what gets executed. So this is the chance to say how to set up the game, how to set up the scene. And finally, we've got another function block here called update. And this is a special one. This special function block is called many times per second. It's going to be a way to make sure our game is evolving, make sure our game is changing over time. So for now, we're only concerned with the function preload block here and the function create block. The next thing you may notice is this stuff here at the top. For game equals new phase of game and so on. So don't worry about the syntax. So syntax is the way this is written. What's interesting here is those two arguments. And you know already that an argument is a way to specify finer detail on the game. So here we've got 790 and 400. So let's just have a play with it. So let's say I'm going to say 290. And here I'm going to say 600. Let's run the program again and see what happens. It looks like the game scene now has a different shape. So those arguments are basically controlling the size of the canvas for a game which is going to say 790 and 400. This itself is an instruction that says, well, we want a new game and this is going to be the size of the canvas. And you'll often hear the terminology object. So this instruction here is sort of returning an object and we're getting a game back. You will learn about this terminology and those more complex details later on in the series of video. Cool. So what we like to do now is to put some text on the screen. How can we do this? Well, the first thing to really understand is how the coordinates working. So when you say, I want a canvas of size 400, 400, the sort of top left corner has the coordinate 0, 0. So if you want to place some text on the top left, then you want something that's close to 0, 0. So let's go ahead and try this. So there is a new instruction available that lets us set a text. It's called game.add.text. So let's use that and see what we can do. So the place you want to type this code is within create, because that's the function block that will be executed to set up the game scene. So we'll type game.add.text. Then the first argument is the x coordinate. I'm going to say 30. Then the second argument is the y coordinate, so 30, 30. So that's going to be somewhere near the top left. And the third argument is the text that you want to be displayed. So we're going to say, welcome to my awesome game. And don't forget a semicolon at the end. The opening parentheses and the closing parentheses are important as well. So let's see what happens when we run this. Fantastic. We now have some text displayed on the screen. Awesome. Well, there's something a little bit new that we did here. As you can see, there's two kinds of arguments. Those are numbers, but this is a little bit special because it's surrounded by double quotes, and that is text. So you often hear in programming in general, we call that data types. There's numbers and there's text. And you'll see later on that there's other kinds of arguments. There are objects, for example. But for now, let's just be concerned with numbers and text. So have a little play with those arguments. So let's say, how would you put the text here at the bottom left corner, or maybe the top right corner? So have a little think on how you can work with that. Once you've done this, you may want to modify the arguments just to understand how the program works. For example, something that is really great, like 5,000. After you finish with this learning activity, here's the wrap-up for it. Again, we've got the numbers. Those are one kind of argument, and we've got text string, which is another kind of argument. But you can do things that are even more complex than that. So learning activity 4 will teach you how to do this. So for example, you may want to specify that your text should have a specific font size, a specific font family, a color. Then learning activity 4 will teach you how to do that. And you can see that's yet another kind of argument because we're passing something that's surrounded by curly braces here as a fourth argument to game.add the text. So this code and the learning activity is available with the manual that goes along with the video. So let's have a little bit wrap up of the concepts that you've learned so far. You've learned what is an instruction. So game.add the text here is an example of an instruction that we're giving to the computer. But you will also often hear the terminology function call. That's just another way to say we're telling the computer to do something. It's a function call. Here in this case, the function is called text and we're calling it. And we can pass arguments to this function to provide finer grained details. For example, the position of the text and the text itself that we like to display. The other thing that you saw are function blocks. So function blocks, we're starting with this sort of keyword here called function, then a space, then the name of the function block. That's a way to organize the code. There were 3 of them provided in the file: preload, create, and update.